Martin Rooney, welcome to the Fitness Business Life podcast. It is always a pleasure to have your company, my man, and I appreciate you coming on to share your in-depth knowledge and wisdom with my audience, who no doubt will be looking forward to the release of this. Thank you very much, sir.
No, hey, my pleasure. And for everyone listening, I can't wait to share whatever Lenny and I are going to be talking about. But so we were just talking, holy crow, almost for an hour straight, catching up from our last trip and my last trip to Belfast, which was one of my favorites of the year. And we just got so carried away. Lenny finally was like, dude, let me just put record, but let me press and record. And we're just missing gold here. So hopefully you will enjoy this. This is going to be a conversation. And man, I feel like since the last time we talked, there's a lot of new ground to cover.
What do people need to know about the younger Martin Rooney to frame this conversation that we're about to have?
Yeah, well, hey, I guess what I would say about that, and this is what we were talking about, is the younger me, I think I always still had that energy, right? I always had the enthusiasm, but I think as you continue—
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, the enthusiasm. I think when you get more and more, you just learn more and more, you make less mistakes. And then when you look back, you say, oh my gosh, what was I like then? Or what did I really do? But that's part of this, right? Like, to be a coach, you got to be further down the path than somebody else. And sometimes it's really painful to walk down that path first, but then you get to share those lessons you've learned to make it a little less painful for somebody else. And I would say, I think my secret has always been my curiosity and my enthusiasm. But I would say the older me now, I'm just getting wiser how to use it. Maybe you could talk about that blunt knife idea that we just went over, because I was definitely a way more blunt knife with my enthusiasm, and maybe sometimes that could do more damage. So I think you have to tell the audience that one, and what, even give them the story of the dinner we had, and then what you're doing now.
Well, yeah, so Martin had asked me what I was getting up to, because I'm always curious to hear what he's been doing, because his life is much more exciting than mine. This man is traveling the world. He's writing books. He's speaking on stages all over the world. And he said, tell me about what's going on in your life. And I said, yeah, just training jiu-jitsu. And when Martin was in Belfast, we had the most amazing dinner at Muddler's Club. Gareth, the owner, he is an absolutely incredible guy. And you and him hit it off because you're both judo black belts. And I was telling you about his best friend, Stevie, who owns another Michelin star restaurant called Ox. And I've been training a little bit with those guys. They're sort of learning the trade when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And last week I was trying to explain a move to them. And I said, look, you don't want to be cranking. You want to just put it on nice so that it's like an anaconda just wrapping around someone, and then you just put on the squeeze. And then I said, because a white belt with a black belt with bad intentions can do more damage than a white belt with good intentions. And what I mean by that is a white belt with good intentions can actually hurt someone. And so you need to be careful what way you're putting on these moves. And Stevie, the Michelin star chef, he said to me, oh, I get that. He said, because a blunt knife can do more damage than a sharp knife, because a sharp knife, there's no effort required to cut the food. But with a blunt knife, there's a lot of effort. And if you catch your finger, you're taking that thing right off.
Yeah. Well, and so for everybody listening, I guess the question is, right, are you always sharpening yourself? See, there are a lot of people that are a blunt knife and they just think that's enough, and they're just hammering through stuff. And I even use the example, if you had a blunt knife and you cut yourself with the blunt knife, it's going to do much more damage with that cut, tearing things apart, than with a surgeon. A surgeon has to use the sharpest knife. So, and a surgeon is a different level of doctor, because they have to have more and more and more education and more and more and more experience to get there. So, man, that one just made my brain explode a little bit, right? So, and I showed this off before. I keep this on my desk all the time. This is my judo black belt. This is a white belt. And I use it, one, to always remind myself, hey, you have to uphold this belt and live the way a black belt should live. But you can never forget to have the open mind and the curiosity to realize that there's always so much more to learn. But I think what it changed for me today too is, hey, but also beware, don't act like a white belt, because a white belt can be the most dangerous person in the room too, because they don't have that knowledge, right, and that experience. So that one right there. Look, podcast's over. Roll the credits. Roll the credits. Go to commercial. We
That's
already,
all the
you know,
value you need right there. That is
yeah,
it.
like everybody got their idea for the day. That's enough. See you in Belfast in September.
Where does the storyteller in Martin Rooney come from? How long has that been a thing?
Ooh. You know what's? It's funny. I guess I would say that guy has always been there. Like here's an interesting thing. I'd say my background. I'm Irish. The last name Rooney. And when you read, this is pretty interesting. Is you are a combination. I do believe that of your history and your lineage. And here's what's neat. The Rooney name, which means descendant of the champion, which I like that one. But the Rooneys were known as the bards. And the bards were these guys, the guy with the harp, and he would sing these songs and stories, and he would be these storytellers of history. So I think there's a little bit of that in the blood that runs through my veins. But I would say it's pretty interesting. My grandfather was a boxer and a teacher, right, of English, which I thought was neat. My mother was a physical education teacher, but her dad was the editor of the town newspaper. And so in this weird like combo, I always had some form of athletics and some form of writing or storytelling that's like who my family is. So I don't know if we were always just passing down stories, or they pass down the gene that they'll someday figure out that helps you tell stories. But I think I've always been that guy, right? Even when I was young, I loved creative writing. I loved the hunt of a story, and I really loved reading stories. From, I think, some of the earliest memories, like the C.S. Lewis Narnia books. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I'm trying to digest those, to where now I love, from the stuff I've done, like now I'm writing books that are stories and fictional novels. So, but here's what I would say that's bigger than any of it. A story is one of the most powerful tools. I believe the storytellers are some of the most powerful people in the world. So everybody needs to do it. And if you're a coach, you got to have it. And this year, we're going to talk about this. This year, I went back to coaching at a high school. And guess what I had every day? Guess what I started the day off with? A story. So every day I started with a story. And at first, they were probably like, man, what's this guy doing? Or this is weird. But then, do you know what happened by the end, Lenny? They would go, is it story time? And they would all sit down and they would laugh, and like a big kindergarten class. But even if they were joking with me, they still always loved the story. Like, look, you were just telling a story. Hey, Martin and I had this incredible meal, right? Guys, I'll tell that story so good of the meal. It'd be better that I tell it than you go and eat the meal, because it'll taste better if I tell the story. But the whole thing is, look, and then you're telling a story that then I worked out with these guys, and then I heard this neat like analogy. See, it's all stories, right? And if you get good at telling it, that's how our brains are so good at picking them up. So today, I just was telling Lenny, he's got to see my Instagram. Right before we did this podcast, I put a story up. So one of my favorite stories is in the 2-minute video, and I know people are going to love it, right? So one of the secrets, which Lenny was just hinting at, because he said, hey, when did you be a storyteller? Everybody's a storyteller. You just maybe need more practice, but everybody's brain remembers those, right? Like, I'm not going to remember the knife thing, and I'm not going to remember, here, watch this. Hey, I'll quiz everybody right now. What are the names of the restaurants from the 2 guys, right? And one at Muddler's Club, I went there, but I didn't know the other guy. I even know his name now too, Stevie. I don't know Stevie. I never met Stevie. I never heard of Stevie before he told the story, but his restaurant is called Ox, which now I want to go there, and I don't even, but do you see the power of that?
Yeah.
Like, crazy. Right? Like, how do I remember that? How would I remember that? And now when I go back to Belfast, I'm going to want to go there. And it's all because of a tiny little story, right?
Amazing.
Whereas, yeah.
I'm going to show him this, and he is going to absolutely This is going to make his day. I can't wait to show him this.
Yeah. Well, and it's, but again, guys, how do you do that with the people that you're working with, right? Like, so let's never forget, like you gotta pull the gem out of what we're talking about. If you're coaching people, hey, if you are a family member, if you're a teacher, instructor, the way that they're going to remember things best is going to be through some type of use of story. It doesn't mean you have to go tell an elaborate legend like Lord of the Rings and it's got to be 7 movies deep, but it might just be that you could say, hey, here's something that happened in my life, or here's something I heard. Hey, did you hear this? Let me tell you a story. And man, you start off with that, their brain goes and they don't forget. And man, I proved it once again that it works, because throughout the season that I just did for 5 months, the kids would keep bringing up stuff from stories I told 5 months before, but I guarantee those same kids can't remember the math problem they learned, or or what they learned in history class, because maybe it wasn't taught the same way.
Well, let's unpack this, Martin, because you went on a bit of a sabbatical, you're calling it,
Yeah.
and you decided to put your theories to the test, which was go back, coach a bunch of high school kids.
Yep. So high school kids in US, it's grade 9 to 12. So say like 14 to 18-year-old kids. That word sabbatical too, which is pretty cool for everybody listening. Because I had to look up what it meant. Like I had this romantic idea about that word. You'd always hear a professor, they went on sabbatical, and it's like they go away for a year and they just go study something they are interested in. And that's part of what it means. But what's interesting is the word sabbatical, hey, that's a biblical word, right? From the Sabbath. The original term meant that once out of every 7 years, when you were a farmer, you would give your crops rest. You would rest these crops that you were, or the fields, you would rest them for a 7th season out of every 7, so that it would become fertile again. And I love that idea, right? Like, so imagine for us, like, even now 7 years I think is a long time, but now imagine every 7th year you just took a year and you let your brain just learn again, right? You just put all your stuff to the test, or you wanted to invest back into your family or yourself or an idea. And that's what I interpret the word that it means. I don't think anybody can completely agree, but it means take time away for a certain period of time to either learn more about something or reconnect with something and grow. And I got to say, I've been grinding for 30 years, right? And I don't know if I ever really took one. I think, or I could almost say I'm on a permanent one, or I never really took one. But what I did was I applied for the job, right? And was a track and field coach at my daughter's high school. At this high school, nobody knew me, right? Like I coached at my other daughter's high school for 4 years, but that's a different school. That was a different time. And this time, it had been a few years away. These were all kids I didn't know. The teachers didn't know me. Nobody knew me. And I wanted to, like you said, I wanted to put it to the test. I wanted to see if the coaching stuff still worked. I wanted to see if the culture stuff still worked. And man, it's been 5 months, right? From the opening winter preseason practices to
Got all
then to the
I got the
daily.
Rooney's rules. Like
Oh yeah. Well, hey, you better have those things, right? But so ultimately put it all to the test. And now last week the season officially ended. We had incredible success. But I think the biggest thing is the lessons that I got. Again, not just that, like, hey, does it work or it doesn't work, but I really grew. And I think in that idea of a sabbatical, you got to put yourself to the test. Yeah, like, hey, so I was sharpening the knife, right? Like maybe the knife was getting a little blunt, and I took 5 months and just sharpened that knife. I made some rules for my sabbatical. I wasn't going to post about it. My phone was not out during practice. So one of the regrets now looking back, the regrets I have, I don't have video of all the stuff we did. I don't have, it would have been neat to have some more, but you know what? I was completely present. And I think that's something that's disappearing now. Like, I think our focus is damaged. I think we're living through an interface of you're not really there because you're trying to capture something instead of being there in that moment. And I think giving them that full focus for that time, we did things that like that they'll never forget. But also we had, you know, we got lucky. We'll talk about that today too. I think we got lucky with the tremendous success that we had too. But ultimately it was the best thing I could have done. And I would, looking back, I would regret it now if I didn't do it. So the challenge for everybody is, hey, what's your sabbatical? Right? Like what would you want to investigate more? Where do you want to volunteer your time? Where do you want to really dig in and go for something? Where can you be more present? If you could even take those out of this idea and then go for it, your life's going to be richer, right? Because mine is definitely richer having done what I did than if I never had the courage to go do it at all.
For the listeners, I mean, you've coached UFC guys, you've coached NFL guys, like you've been in the top tier when it comes to strength and conditioning coaches, and you decided to volunteer your time to go and coach a bunch of high school kids. What were some of the more challenging aspects of doing that? Did your ego take a hit? Like,
Ah, well, just what you're saying right there. I thought, right, that I was going to walk in and some like that they would like check out who I was, and then they would be so pumped up, you know, and really exactly like what happens usually where I go somewhere. So when I go to a conference or I go present, the people are familiar with me, they've done their homework, and they are ready. Like they're ready to absorb, they're ready to learn. And man, was this a rude awakening. So I got there. Not only did they not know what I did, they didn't care what I did. And the more that I said what I did, I think they believed me less. Like I'd be like, guys, I was a speed coach in the NFL. And they would like look at me like I was crazy. Hey, I've had the fastest man at the combine. They would like be nuts. I trained an Olympic trials winner in track and field. I've been a track coach for the last 10 years. And every single thing I said, it's like I dug the hole deeper, as if maybe they thought, well, he's only saying these things because he's not good. Or then it got to the point they would laugh and say he couldn't have done all these things, right? It can't be true. And I would go home at night, and I've never had this before. Like it was like imposter syndrome, right? I was like, am I this guy anymore? Can I do it? Can I connect with
oh,
people? Am I not cool? Like that one hurt the most. Like I thought I was cool, and I was like, it was not cool. Like, and so I had to learn a whole new thing about it. But here's the big lesson in the end. But here's what I could have done. I could have took my foot off the gas and just broke and just gone to practice and did the thing and let them control it. And by the way, there was 110 kids. Like there was a lot of kids. But I didn't allow that. I kept my foot down and I was going to break them. Like, you know what? I had to finally say, this does work. This is better for them. They're going to learn how cool I am. These punks, like they're going to figure it out. And I just kept going and going. And then you'd get a crack of a smile out of them. And then I'd get them clapping, or then we'd get them yelling, and I had to beg them for it. Like I had to like give everything I had to pull this out of them. And then it started to shift. And one big moment, and I told you this previously, one big moment, because I kept talking why we were working so hard. And, because they always, like, sometimes they weren't listening, or I kept saying, trying to have fun, where I said, hey, we got to do the hard work first. And I said, you know what's fun? And I created this line for the team. I said, you know what's fun? You know what's fun? Winning is fun. Like winning, we're going to have so much fun when we win. But if we don't do the work now, we're not going to win. And then it's not going to be fun. And I'll tell you what, that first meet, we had this big first meet. It was an invitational. There were like 15 guys teams and 15 girls teams. And they were big schools, bigger than us, schools that like are scarier schools, known schools. And we went, and both guys and girls won the whole thing. And when we did that, and we brought them all together, and I started speaking, right? And I said this was going to happen, and I knew you guys could do this. And I was so proud of you guys. And we started doing our chants, and we started doing our stuff. And from there on out, I had them. But I think the biggest lesson though is watch this one. This one's big. Here's some big takeaways, because now I'm having some breakthroughs. When a culture is already in place, it's one of the hardest things in the world to walk in and change.
Mm,
You don't do that in one practice. You don't do that in one cool story. You have to fight and defend and honor that thing that you want so long until you get them. That was really hard, because usually I don't have to do that. Like, you see how when we did the ECA event, which, by the way, guys, if you are listening, you need to go to it. It's one of the it was the best event that I have been to in years and years,
oh, thank you, Martin.
right? Just the energy, but the fire, and then the level of the presenters, it was awesome. But at that event, I had them rolling in like a minute. Like, it did, and I'm rolling in from another country and they were on fire. Like, that was not, that's not going to be how it's always going to work, right? And this thing took me months to turn the ship, and man, it was painful, right? So that was one, is you're going to have to fight for that thing nonstop, and in order to do that, you're going to have to bring it every day. Like, you cannot uphold something that isn't there. Like I said, we were going to have energy. I said we were going to cheer people on. Then, like, you had to have that the whole time. And, like, man, you had to ready yourself for that every day, right? And so for you listening, if there's a culture right now that you have with your clients and you want to now change that because of what you've heard, you're gonna have to fight for that for a while. Can't just go in and tell a story on Monday and then it's great. You'd have to do that forever, right? Like, every day. Like, that's what I had to do. Every day I had something. Every day I had a trick. I had a story. I had an idea. Every day we did the jumping jacks the same way. Everybody had to yell, and I would just keep begging them for it. And now looking back, it was so much work. But then you have this masterpiece at the end when your team wins the big championship or you have the big success, and you don't remember the pain anymore, right?
Mm.
So here's a good one. This is one that I told them all the time. You're going to love this one. Because my judo mentor, he was a medalist at the Olympics. He always used to say, when we were working so hard and people were dead and they were losing the fire, he would say, guys, let me tell you something right now. On your day of victory, you will not be tired. On your day of victory, you're not going to be crying. You're going to be exploding boundless energy. And I'll tell you what, when our teams that would win the big races, and I'm talking the 400 meters, stuff that's like horrible. The guy that came in second, third, fourth, fifth to be laying there on the ground, right? And our guy be jumping on fire, so, and we enjoyed that. But I'm telling you that right now too, that, hey, if you want something great to happen, you're gonna have to put in the work for a really long time. But the day it happens, you won't remember all that hard work. You're gonna be pumped up and on fire. And so those were some big lessons that I got. But circling all the way back, but it wasn't easy. It was super hard, and it's like I had to relearn it all again. Now, watch this. Do you know when it's gonna be easy, Lenny, or easier? You know when it's gonna be easier?
Second time round.
Yeah, if I come coach next year again, then we're gonna start off where we left off. Their kids are gonna already have told the other ones stories about it when it goes. So maybe that's another big lesson too. Is, guys, it's only super hard in the beginning. Like, it's super hard to get that thing going. Not it, once it's rolling, right? Once you got that rock rolling, I guess what you would say, down the hill, or the snowball is rolling, then it's gonna go. I just thought it was, yeah, you have this vision that it's going to be easier. It was not easy. Like, no
I
way.
always give the flywheel analogy. And my
Yeah,
guys, they constantly. I talked about this at the summit, where you try to start up a flywheel like a lawnmower, and whenever you pull the cord, it jams. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, 'cause the flywheel's not turning just yet, so you need to pull the cord a few more times. And as a for you, what that means is every single day you got to go in there and pull the cord until the flywheel starts turning all by itself. And over time, it just picks up momentum, it picks up pace. And if you think about each turn of the flywheel, the first one for you was, it wasn't even like making sure that the best athletes were in the right place. It was just getting them bought into the
oh
energy
yeah,
that you wanted, and the type of culture that you wanted to create. Did you have to? Because I've always heard you say you've either got cultures or you've got vultures. Did you have
yeah.
did
Well,
you have to
watch
win
this.
over any vultures?
It's so funny you just asked that. And guys, we did not talk about this before, and Lenny's gonna love this. I had like 5 guys, and here's the challenge: they were some of our better performers. And
Mm.
those were the ones that were not buying in. They weren't counting. They would stay on the side. When we had the whole team together at the meet, they'd be over by themselves. And actually, I started to take it personally. Like it was, for lack of a better term, it was pissing me off. Like I was like driving home and from practice, and I would be venting, and like I was getting angry. I was like, man, I'm mad because I don't want to kick them out of here because they're some of our better guys, but they're hurting the whole place. Now watch this. There's some big lessons here. First one, and everybody's going to love this. So I would call my one buddy on the way home, and he's a high school coach, and I would be complaining, and I would be complaining. And you know what he said? He goes, "Dude, didn't you read your book?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Didn't you ever read your book, High 10?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Those are your vultures, man. You got some vultures right now." And it hit me. I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "You're right. I didn't think of that. And I do have the vultures." And he's like, "So dude, you got to coach him up or you got to coach him out, baby. Like, aren't you following your own stuff?" And I was like, "Oh man." So first I identified it. And here's some lessons, some big ones. I made some mistakes. Here's the first big mistake I made. I started punishing the whole team because of them.
Mm.
I was so mad that they weren't doing. I had 96 of them counting and on fire, and there's 4 I didn't have, and I was letting that really bother me. And then I would be angry with the other 96, and then I was punishing everybody as if it was their fault that they couldn't get the other guys on board. No, that was my fault. And I did that at first, and then having a lot of conversations with my friends, then I had to have a real tough conversation with those guys. I took them aside. I said, "Hey, man, here's what I'm seeing. I feel like you're either not into this or I'm taking it personally." And I think that hit them. They were like, they did not feel that way. They were like, they were just having fun. They were just being kids. And I said, "Guys, here's what I need you to do. Like, I need you to be leaders here, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I've been paying a lot of attention to you because you're not doing it and it's hurting the team. Here's how this is going to work. I'm not paying any attention to you anymore. I want you in the back of the line where no one can see you. And you know what? If you never hear me talking to you, that's when you should be worried, right? If I'm not coaching you, that means I gave up on you. Anybody want that here? Right? So here's the thing. It turned it around. And then you want to know the crazy part? Those guys are my best guys now. Like those are my guys now. Now 5 months later, and we won some medal. They started winning medals, and they started getting better, and they started to see I trust that guy. Like he's not. Yeah. At first I think I don't know what they think. Maybe they don't believe you, or they don't. They're not. They don't like. I don't know.
Generational.
Maybe authority figures in their life. There were little things, right? Like here was an interesting thing. When we would ride the bus home, uh, and then it would drop everybody off, I would spend a lot of time waiting, and there would be a lot of parents that didn't show up, or there would be parents that showed up late, or you start to get the real story, right? See, at practice, you're not maybe asking them how's their family at home or how's things going. And
Mm.
then you know what? Maybe when I got some of the stories, maybe I wasn't, maybe my expectation was too hard. So I think it was both ways. I think they didn't know me and I didn't know them. And then the more that happened and you made that happen, uh, the connection got a lot deeper, and we got more out of them,
Yeah.
right? Or so coaching is about relationships. So for everybody listening, it's not about the weights or taking them through a workout or the diet that they're on. You got to learn
Croatian curls.
what's that.
The Croatian curls.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta meet them where they're at. You gotta know their scenario. They gotta know you care, right? And and then you're gonna build that relationship from there. And my challenge to everybody listening is, are you doing enough of that, right? Like sometimes it's like they come in, they're a few minutes late, you just do your warm up, they do their class, they head home, and it's so superficial that like why are they going to go home and eat better because of you? Why are they going to go home and get sleep now and they haven't done that for 10 years? Like what did you do? How did you invest, and how are you connected that they don't want to let you down, right? And I had to really build that, and that costs time and it costs energy, but it was worth it, right? And again, just these deep lessons, right? Like it didn't matter what I knew about speed training, right? Because if they don't care and they're not going to do it, then it doesn't matter that you know it, right? And so yeah, there were, but my vultures were there. And here's the other part too, where you'll be proud of yourself when you do it. You need to have the difficult conversations. See,
Mm.
it would have been easier for me to never confront them. It would have been easier for me to just let it ride. But like by doing it, it made it all better. And you have to do that. Like if somebody's showing up all the time late, if you've got a client and you do group training and they're really negative and they're kind of wrecking your business and they're holding you hostage for 140 quid a month, they're hurting you, man, and you're too chicken to go say something about it. And you know what, I was too chicken at first. Like I think we all have that. We're afraid, we don't want to do it. But then I have to remind myself, I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Or like, you're gonna act afraid of this stuff right now? And then I would go do it, and everybody felt better. And this goes to if you run a staff too. Hey, if you have a staff and you need to fire somebody or you need to confront them about their behavior or you're going to fire them, you know what most people do? They bury it deep inside. It bothers them every day. It actually ruins their sleep and they never do anything about it. And then it wrecks their business and the person leaves anyway. Go attack that right away and have a conversation and get the ball rolling. And that was another big lesson I had. Like, so yeah, there was a lot. Like, so we're unpacking 5 months here, people.
Dealing with because Gen Z gets a bit of a bad rep. Gen Z,
Yeah.
people talk about generation. I mean, did you see were there cultural things in that aspect dealing with a
Yeah.
bunch of kids? Because I want to find out because you also you have a lot of gold around working with people who are 40 plus,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, did you see a difference in from that aspect?
Absolutely. Like it's, hey, we are that I definitely subscribe. It's not just funny memes on Instagram, like yeah, I'll get hit with them. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I get hit with all these 70 and 80s things. Like, so here would be some common themes. We drank out of the hose in our backyard. We didn't have a helmet when we rode our bikes and we would jump them as high as we could. We didn't use seat belts in our cars. Like, and so it's almost like my I guess I'm Gen X or whatever they call us. Like mine is we were just tough badasses. We would leave all day. Our parents didn't know where we were. They would always say like we were 30 years old when we were 10 and we were still 30 when we were 30. And there's truth to that stuff. It wouldn't be funny if they didn't have that. This generation, I think the one thing definitely is like, hey, I can't coach them like those kids,
Mm.
right? So I think here's some differences. I think the parents and hey, I'm one of those parents, right? So I also will
Yep.
agree to it. I think we're all helicopter parents a lot. We try to take care of all the problems for our kids before they happen, so the kids don't solve them. And one big thing I noticed is how you deliver feedback and when you're coaching. So, guys, I'm high energy. If you haven't noticed, I'm veins in the neck, in your face, and that scares these kids. Like they think you're yelling. They keep saying that you're yelling at me. You're yelling at me, and I'm like, no, I'm telling you how to put your arms so you run better. But they interpret that they interpret feedback and criticism as they're not good and they're getting yelled at. And hey, I blame that on us as parents. We don't yell at them. Like I got yelled at a lot. I know what getting yelled at is like. I also know what getting spanked is like. That I don't condone that, I guess now. I don't know why, but yeah, now that's not how we do it. But discipline and coaching are very different now than they were. I can't say which one is better, right? Like, but I will say that the kids, you have to be much more delicate in your approach of how you get your stuff across. And that is a generational thing. Like my coaches were hard. My coaches were demanding. My coaches, hey, they said some stuff that was a little bit scarring, but here's what's pretty interesting. I would not be who I am if I didn't have that. So I don't know, was that good or was that bad? But I can't be that type of coach with these kids, or I wouldn't have had that job 5 minutes like
No,
that. They
no.
would get rid of you. So, but what I would definitely say, oh, here would be one. Number one, that thing I just talked about, how you deliver your criticism. I had to let the kids know, and I told them, I said, guys, if I'm ever talking to you or saying things, it's because I want you to do great and because I care about you. That's just my style, how I'm coaching it. So when I'm coaching you, I'm not yelling at you or singling you out. I see that your legs are wrong. I want you to move your legs better, right? So by saying that, I think they understood that. But here's another one. Boys and girls, you got to coach them different.
Okay.
So here's a biggie. Here's a biggie. This is about to be a knowledge bomb. Get ready, people. Get ready. For boys, for boys, they gotta play good to feel good. So they gotta perform well. You gotta drive performance out of them. When they're kicking some butt, they feel good. For girls, they gotta feel good to play good. Like if they show up and, oh, it's a bad day and the coach doesn't like me and everybody's yelling at me and like, man, I'm not feeling it today, like then their performance is going to be damaged. And guys, for anybody listening, I have 4 daughters. So I have 4 daughters and my daughter was on this team. So this is not a, ooh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What's he saying? I've been through this a lot. I have 5 women in my house. My dog and my cats are females too. I'm outnumbered, outgunned. I have to learn, right? I've been learning the hard way for a long time. But here's what's interesting too. And then with the boys, in order to get them to play good, I can use this kind of strategy. I can be like, guys, this is it. This is it. This is the race. This is the one we've been working for. Let's go. Let's kick some butt. Let's tear them to pieces. There's our enemy. Let's go get them, right? The girls, if you pull that one, like if you pull that, they start cowering up. A tear might roll out of their eye. Guys, the guys want to destroy their competition. They want to win. The girls want to compete, but they want to be friends with everybody. They want to be liked. They don't want to tear them to shreds. And I
Right.
made that mistake. Like I've done it before. This was for years ago. I would take a relay team and the boys, I'd be like, this is it, school record, let's go. We got to do this or we lose everything. And they would go out and break it. When I said that to the girls, they would all start to cry and have their worst performance. So with the girls, I would be like, hey, guys, look up into the stands. You see that? There's your parents. And I want you to know they're going to love you whether we perform good or not. This team right here, you're a team and you guys are like so great together. Let's help each other out. Hey, all those other girls out there, it's going to be great for us to compete, win or lose. Let's just go do our best. Hey, let's do it. When I would pull that, now we get the most out of them, right? So guys, there's art that I'm still learning. There's art to the age of the kid. There's art to, like the level that the kid is at. There's an art to how you deliver it in your tonality, in your body language. And as a coach, we're just all trying to do our best. You're trying to match that to the kid. I call it the Holy Grail. So in the Coach to Coach book, I call it the Holy Grail. Every coach wants to say the right thing at the right time to the right kid in the right way, just like they needed to hear it right then. And it doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. Here, I'll give you this one. Lenny's going to love this. Jim Miller, who just fought at UFC 300, I've cornered him. I always try to, man, right before the guy goes into the cage, you want to just say the right thing. And a lot of times I think I nail it because I know him so well and we're so close and I got one saved up and we're ready to go. And he was fighting this guy a handful of fights ago. And the guy's nickname was the Ghost Pepper. And Jim is a real culinary guy. Like Jim cooks great. He's all about food. So I don't know why it came out, but the crowd is getting us amped up. We're ready to go in. And we're about to leave the locker room. And I said, Jim. And Jim's pacing back and forth. And I said, let's get out there. You eat ghost peppers for breakfast, baby. And he just freezes and he like looks at me and he's like, really, dude? Did you like really? That was it? That was what you had right then? And it actually made it funnier because like it made it stronger because I think it showed I cared and that we also are close enough for him to be like, dude, that was horrible. You really blew it. But now I usually just more traditionally, I just get in his ear and I just say, go beat that guy up. Go beat him up. Right. Like I think you can't go wrong with that one. But as coaches, we're always trying to say something great. We're always trying to help, but it always doesn't go great. And I definitely learned my lesson with that one.
What are some of the, because I suppose like that's really, it's in a way that's kind of two ends of the scale. You're talking about high level athletes and you're talking about kids. There's a whole like the rest of the world is
Yeah.
is in the
Yeah.
middle ground, right? The rest of the world is the 40-year-old mother who can barely make it to the gym 2 days a week and has to run around after the rest of the family, has to cook for everyone, has the busy lifestyle, you know, and the vast majority of coaches out there are not going to be working with a high level athlete. They're not going to be working with the kids. What are some of the biggest takeaways that someone, let's say, trying to motivate that person,
Yeah.
who's been working a 40-hour week, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, for everybody listening, so you understand, and hey, you've seen the fire that I have for the athletes, and you see the fire that I have, whether it's younger kids to all the athletes to all the way up to the pros. And but what Lenny is hinting at is, hey, my organization, what you see me wearing, is called Training for Warriors. We have hundreds of locations, and pre-COVID, hundreds and hundreds in 36 countries around the world. And for 25 years, my organization has been coaching 35 to 65 non-athlete. And I never like to say non-athlete. I believe everybody's an athlete at heart. We're all a warrior at heart. That's our philosophy. But I want everybody to understand that that is where I've spent most of my time and where my boots are on the ground. So everybody knows, if you only think you're going to train high level athletes or somebody like that, that's going to be a very challenging time. But I think the biggest mistake, right? Like, you'll love this one. And maybe I just made it for you. I just made it for you and now I'm going to try to win it back. The biggest mistake is if you're a coach and you're not excited about that group. I think the first thing right off the bat is that you want to hear, when people talk to me, they say, tell me about those NFL guys. Tell me about UFC 300. Tell me about the track kid and the best one. And nobody says, man, tell me about how you got Mrs. Jones to put down the bottle and instead of 2 days a week, get there 3 days a week and change your diet and change your sleep habits. How'd you do that? Because see, actually, guys, for everybody listening, that's the job. Like, I think what we all end up doing is we try to look what I was trying to do. I was trying to give big lessons from what I got from sport so you can hopefully apply it to the real world, is what I call it. And no, hey, I spent a lot of time in the real world too. So yeah, we should talk about that. But I want to start off by saying the same enthusiasm that I have for gym, one of my secrets was that I always had the same enthusiasm for everybody regardless. So maybe this will be a gift that I give you right now. And this was a gift I had to give myself because I had to make that transition, right? Like, there was a time in my career, hey, if you weren't super high level or a big time pro or weren't famous, I didn't want to train you.
Okay.
And I had to have a wake up call. And that wake up call was like the sabbatical that I just did. It was, I started volunteering with way younger kids in town and athletes. Hey, I started spending a lot of time training like the housewives and the weekend warrior guys, right? And here's what my lesson was. Do you know what the lesson was, Lenny?
What was it?
This was big. And guys, I'm asking everybody to go through this exercise right now. Here's the lesson. I just love coaching. Like, I really came to the conclusion, I don't care who it is. I just love coaching. I love the energy of it. I love seeing a difference. I love making a difference. It didn't matter who it was. I liked what I was doing. So you gotta do some deep soul searching tonight. If you're listening to this, do you just love coaching, or do you only wanna, I wanna work with this big team? That's my dream. I want to do that. Because here's another thing I'll let you know. Coaching the pros, it's not a lot of fun, and you don't make a lot of impact. They tell you what to do. They've already heard everything a million times. They're very fickle and they disappear real fast. They actually don't want to pay you because they think it's a privilege for you to be training them. And anything you really already say, there's not a lot of difference to make. They're already super highly motivated and already doing a lot of great stuff. And you didn't do anything to get them there,
Mm.
right? Here's what I would challenge you. And I say this, the most important coaches in the world are the ones that can have the opportunity to make the greatest impact. Me training those high school kids, like, if they ever went on to something bigger or better, I had a piece of that. And the odds are most of them are not going to be high level athletes. But you know what? Maybe they'll be a better worker or husband or wife or father or mother someday because of something I said. Whereas that super high level pro that you get at 35 years old already, like, and you see them for 10 sessions and then they go travel their season, you don't get the same thing there.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith or Jones, who you will have the opportunity to train for years, and you could change their whole life and affect their whole legacy. Guys, I don't know if we ever understand the importance of that and how bad they need you. Because if you don't get the job done and you don't save them, and man, things go bad, imagine like they came to you, it didn't work, you didn't connect, they said fitness doesn't work, they get completely, worse condition, develop some heart condition, have a heart attack in front of their child, and like what's the lessons there, right? Or the reverse, and like what our job is supposed to be, they change their life, they change how they eat, they become a role model for their kids, the health, the whole household becomes healthier. And like now, what are the tales of that kid's life and then their kid's life, right? And so yeah, it's kind of, it gets deep there. But guys, as coaches, we're dropping a rock in a pond and there's all these ripples. And I guess what I'm saying is you have a chance to make way more ripples with maybe the person you're not as excited about right now than the one you wish you were training, right? And maybe that's not right. So, man, yeah, you never know where it's going to go when you're
No,
talking, but
no,
I
you
think we're
don't.
hitting some home runs here. I
No,
hope if everybody's liking it, let Lenny know so we can do another one of these.
yeah, absolutely. Does Martin Rooney still make mistakes? Does people still slip through the net?
Oh, without a doubt. Like, here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing hard enough, right? Like, you're just not pushing hard enough. I made probably hundreds of mistakes this season that I thought I was doing the right thing. You say the wrong thing. You like, you just didn't connect the right way. Without a doubt. Like I told you, I went too hard. I definitely focused too much on what I wasn't getting than what I was getting, right? Like, I think that's human nature, though. Like, here's an interesting one. If you go on Amazon, there are 600 reviews for this book. Guess which ones I pay attention to?
The negative reviews.
Yeah, like, guys, there are 600. I think it says 90+% are 5-star. Really, hey, guys, I do feel that they got it right. Then there'll be some 4-star. It only goes down to 3-star for that one. But like, I'm like, who the heck gave that 3 stars? I gotta, like, this is driving me nuts. It's killing me. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's like 3 people out of like 600. So I think it's human nature for us to focus on the negative. I don't know why that is, but definitely that was, yeah. So there were, without a doubt, and hey, and I'm going to keep making mistakes. Hey, big mistakes I made, and maybe this is where we go to finish this thing. Like I mentioned, a big reason why I was there also, hey, I'm not going to pretend I'm just so altruistic. My daughter goes to that school. My 3 daughters go to that school, and my 1 daughter is on that team. And I wanted my daughter to see her dad coach. I wanted to be around my daughter because having learned already with my 2 oldest, it's my 3rd daughter that was on this team. My oldest has gone through it and is gone and is like, she's away at school. We haven't, we barely see her, right? Like, I know your time is very short with your kids. Here's a stat. This one should scare you. If you've got children, 95% of the time you're going to spend with your child in their lifetime is 17 years old or under. So I already have 2 over that age, and it's the truth. Like, they're gone. They don't want to be around you. They don't want to see you. Or not that they don't want to see you, but they go off on their lives. Like, you're not the center of it anymore. And that 15-year-old I have, I want to make sure I max it out, right? Like that I get the time with her. And so I will say that was a big reason I was there too. And but I made a lot of mistakes there. I think I tried to overcompensate. So I would either try to look way harder on her in front of everybody so they thought she wasn't getting special treatment. I think it's the hardest thing in the world to play that dual role of parent and coach. I think on the car ride home, I couldn't turn it off and I would review stuff or drive her harder instead of being fun. And maybe I made it a little less fun at certain times. So I had to get better at that. But she had her best season ever. And I think she really fell even in love more with the sport, and she really kicked butt. And we had a lot of special moments because of that. And that was really cool too. But I'll give you now making it funny, because I said those things which are negative. At the banquet, I gave a talk, right? Because we had a finishing year banquet. And I said, I talked about moments. And this is important for everybody here. Your life happens moment to moment, but you never know which one's going to be the one you remember forever. And as a coach, I was trying to create moments, whether it was the story each day, getting them laughing, us having a big victory, celebrating their success. I was trying to create a moment that they're going to cherish forever. And I said, but I want to talk about not the wins and the school records and the championships. I want to talk about all the moments you guys are going to remember forever, because sports will be gone. Medals will go in a box under your bed someday, but you're going to have these moments. And I talked about it. I said, hey, everybody right now point to a friend that you made this season on the team, and they did it. And I said, hey, remember when we were all doing the cartwheels during this one practice? They raised their hands. I said, remember when somebody said this, or remember when we did that? And I said, now I want to tell you about a special moment for me, right? About being a dad. And I said, guys, I hear everything you say. I'm at practice. I overhear you. You think I'm not listening. And I said, there was a group of guys, and they were all talking about what it would take to date my daughter, Kira. And they were talking, and they said, man, that Coach Rooney, he's crazy. To date her, you're going to probably have to bench 300 pounds and run 11 seconds in the 100-meter. And then I said, guys, I want to be crystal clear. I was shocked when I heard that. I can't believe I heard that, and I want to set the record straight. I said, in order to date my daughter, Kira, you are going to have to bench 350 pounds and run a 10-5 or less. Are you kidding me? That was the real numbers. And like the place erupts. My kid is mortified, but we got more connected than ever after that. Like when we were driving home, she goes, so what you did there, Dad? So what you did right there, Dad. So ultimately, like, hey, coaching still has to be fun, but hey, whether it's kids or, again, going back to the adult, what's that moment you're creating? Like, what's that thing that you say that they hear your voice in their ear, and like they don't pick up the bottle, or man, they get to bed on time. Like, this is what we're battling with. Like, so that's another one. So watch, one big mistake. You'll like this, Lenny, as I already said it. You're not excited about them. Like, you don't get fired up to say, I'm going to go change Mrs. Smith's life. Like you would say, I want Jim to win UFC 300. People, you got to learn to be excited about that, or you're going to be in big trouble. The second one is that you think the coaching ends on the gym floor, right? Like, you think the coaching starts and ends there. If that's the only place you coach them, and you only got them 2 hours a week because they're busy, it can't work. It actually can't work, and they won't lose the weight. Oh man, I just dropped the hurling stick, and they'll never get the result that you're supposed to be getting for them, because you got to coach a lot of other areas too, right? And that's another big lesson that I think everybody needs to hear. Like, guys, I don't care how good your workout is. You can't burn enough calories to get them to lose weight and change their whole life if they don't do some other stuff too.
I think everyone listening to this will for sure be envious of those kids, those people going to training for Warriors, and those athletes that get to be coached by a legend such as Martin Rooney.
Well, hey, it's a good time to talk about it. If you're listening and you're one of the people that's going to be coming, we just inked it again. Yep. I'm coming back to the ECA event in Belfast, and I actually cannot wait. Guys, if you think this is fire, wait till you see the heat I'm going to be bringing. So, and hey, guys, podcasts are great. I really hope you enjoyed this one, but you know what? You got to be in the room. Like, nothing replaces the energy of being in a room and you actually being focused to absorb information. Something different happens when you're present and you're in person. And hey, last year, the thing I loved the most was actually on all the breaks, and even when each day would end, how much time we would spend talking to everybody and all the people I met. So I'm really looking forward to that again.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. Martin, as always, your energy is infectious. You're an amazing person, someone that I'm very grateful to call a friend now at this stage. And I can't wait to have you back in Belfast on September 27th and 28th.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna have to have you do is repeat all that again. I'm gonna bring my wife and kids down so they can hear how great I am. Because also remember this. Also remember this. Maybe this is a good final lesson. You are never a prophet in your own house. You're never a prophet in your own home. So, guys, not just on the physical stuff, but I bet we all have the same challenges talking about eating, talking about sleeping, talking about all the things with the people that are closest to us. But maybe this is the final lesson too. I don't know why it is, but it's so easy to give a high five to somebody we barely know than it is to give it to the person that's closest to us that needs it the most. So, hey, if you got anything from this, when you get done listening, go find that person, your significant other, your kids, your spouse, whatever, and go tell them something good that they did. Go coach them up, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we make is we save that for all the other people, and we don't always give it to the ones that need it the most. And if I were to talk about a big mistake I make, that's definitely another one too.
Yeah.
So maybe
Culture
that's a
starts.
great way to
Yeah.
finish it off.
Culture starts at home. I remember you saying that
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
absolutely.
Martin, where can people connect with you? No doubt. Well, no, let's do this. Let's do this because you had mentioned this, and I want to reinforce this. We buy coach to coach for every single student that comes through our doors at ECA, and we're going to continue to do that. But we want to get it into the hands of more people. So how can people do that?
Yeah. So guys, this book, it's easy to read. It's got every lesson that I have about coaching. It was a life love work that I put together. When you read it, I promise you will love it. If you don't, you can write me and we'll figure out how to get you something else. But if you order it, you can get it on Amazon, right? If you order it and you send me the receipt after you ordered it to Martin at coachinggreatness.com, if you enjoyed this podcast, I'll send you PDFs and I'll send you another speech that would have cost you $500 to be in the room, more stuff that I know about coaching. So why I'm doing all those things is because I just want you to read the book. Like, if you read the book, you will be better, and I promise you will love it. You'll probably read it every year, like so many people tell me. So I just need more people to read it, and hopefully that offer, because it stands. If you do it, like, you'll even get more.
Well, you know what to do. People get on to Amazon, buy Coach the Coach, recommend it to a friend, leave a review, and also share this podcast because then we can get it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
more people and more listeners, and then more people. So if you got value from the podcast, share it with another coach who needs to hear this. Thank you for your time, Mark.
Cheers.